calculators, walkie-talkies, and CB radios. Look for the big red tags. Hurry into Radio Shack today.
It's a Saturday afternoon in 2014, and you're driving past the strip mall you've been driving past your entire life. The Radio Shack is still there, same spot it's been in since before you could drive. Except now, there's a paper sign taped inside the glass. Store closing. Everything must go. You bought your first walkie-talkie in that store. Your dad bought a police scanner, and the clerk spent 20 minutes showing him how to program it. But this time the shelves are half empty. No walkie-talkies, no power cables, just silence. That's the moment Radio Shack actually died. A brand that once operated over 8,000 locations and taught an entire generation how electronics worked. This is how Radio Shack went from a $10 billion electronics store to just a memory. The original promise of Radio Shack was simple.
Radio Shack. You've got questions, we've got answers.
Walk in not knowing what you need. Walk out with exactly the right part, explained by someone who understood it. That was the entire business. And I'm curious, what was the first thing you bought from Radio Shack? Comment down below and subscribe while you're there, because many people may not know, Radio Shack didn't start as a large company. The Deutschman brothers started it in 1921 as a mail order catalog in Boston. For 40 years, it stayed exactly that, a niche supplier. By the early 1960s, it had 9 stores, negative cash flow, and no clear future. Then one man came to save the day. A Texan named Charles Tandy bought the company in 1963 for $5 million and proceeded to do something that almost nobody in retail has successfully replicated. He turned a parts shop into a knowledge business. Tandy understood that electronics were intimidating. Transistors, capacitors, and all this other worldly tech stuff. This was confusing for most Americans, but the demand was there. People wanted to understand. They wanted to build a radio with their kid on a Saturday. They wanted to know which antenna would pick up the game. They wanted someone to tell them, in plain language, what the difference was between these two cables. Radio Shack's staff were the go-to people. Think of them as the original geek squad that Best Buy now has today. They were the kind of people who built shortwave receivers in their garage and could identify a capacitor by sight. Tandy hired them, gave them a store, and let them teach. But what he did next changed the course of Radio Shack forever.
Buy my computer.
Hey, buy my computer.
No, buy my computer.
There's one way to cut through today's computer clutter. Compare other business computers with Radio Shack's Tandy TRS-80 Model 2000.
Tandy adjusted the blueprint for the entire operation. Radio Shack designed and manufactured its own product lines. Realistic for audio, Micronta for test equipment, Archer for accessories. These brands existed nowhere else. If you wanted a realistic receiver combined with the knowledge on how to use it, you had to walk through their door. Their growth was insane. 1,000 stores seemed like it tripled overnight. In 1977, Radio Shack released the TRS-80 personal computer for $599 and outsold Apple. Not because it was better technology, but because Radio Shack had distribution in every town and a staff that could actually walk a confused customer through what a computer was for. By the early 1980s, Radio Shack was the largest computer retailer in the world, so they doubled down. Through that decade and into the 1990s, they released more originals. Science fair kits, CB radios, the Battery of the Month Club, free battery every month just for showing up. Revenue crossed $5 billion. And at the time, Radio Shack had more stores than McDonald's. And then the ground they built their stores on started to crumble. Slowly at first, then all at once.
Any questions? Radio Shack has over 25,000 people with simple answers to complicated questions. Radio Shack. You've got questions, we've got answers.
The first crack was information. The internet gave every consumer access to the same product knowledge that Radio Shack's staff had been providing for decades. Spec sheets, user reviews, comparison tools, forums, all free, all available at 2 in the morning from your couch. The core identity that Radio Shack had since 1963 was suddenly available without getting in your car. Then the next earthquake hit. Best Buy opened superstores with 40,000 square feet of inventory. Radio Shack's stores averaged 2,000 square feet. You could physically fit 20 Radio Shacks inside a single Best Buy. When the purchase decision shifted from "help me understand this" to "show me all my options," Radio Shack was put at a disadvantage essentially overnight. The third crack was price. Amazon launched, and within a few years, the same cable that RadioShack sold for $19.99 was available online for $3.47 with free shipping. Electronics became a normal thing, and price transparency made RadioShack's markup visible to everyone. You didn't need to be a crazy shopper to figure out you were overpaying, you just needed the internet. RadioShack was now fighting a war against free information, big box selection, and internet pricing, and somehow they were losing on all of them. Unlike competitors who faced one or two of these issues, RadioShack's format was vulnerable to all three. Best Buy could absorb the Amazon threat because they had the store size to offer services like Geek Squad and in-store pickup. Apple could ignore Best Buy because their products were what sold. RadioShack had nothing. Well, they had one last thing: cell phones.
RadioShack.
Hello.
Merry Christmas, honey.
Bet you a mobile phone from RadioShack would make him smile.
By the mid-2000s, over half of RadioShack's revenue came from wireless activations. They were processing contracts for Sprint, AT&T, and Verizon, collecting a commission for every new plan they signed up. For a while, it kept the lights on, but they were on borrowed time. The carriers controlled every variable: the promotions, the pricing, the inventory, everything. They'd become dependent on partners who were actively working to make them unnecessary. Meanwhile, the identity confusion was hurting the company internally. Nobody could agree on what RadioShack was supposed to be anymore. A cell phone retailer? The carriers were eating that alive. A general electronics store? Best Buy already owned that category. Every answer led to a different strategy, and leadership couldn't commit to any of them. The knowledge that had once defined RadioShack crumbled year by year as budgets were slashed and veteran employees left. Then it happened. The 2014 Super Bowl commercial. By 2012, sales were declining quarter after quarter. The stock, which had traded above $70 in the early 2000s, was sitting under $5. In 2013, RadioShack announced it would close 1,100 locations, about a quarter of its remaining stores. The closures were supposed to stop the losses. It didn't. During the 2014 Super Bowl, RadioShack aired what might be the most self-aware commercial in advertising history.
RadioShack? Okay.
What?
The 80s called. They want their store back.
The bit was that the 1980s had called and wanted their store back. Alf, Hulk Hogan, Dee Snider, and Mary Lou Retton all cameoed. They marched into a RadioShack and dismantled it piece by piece. The ad went viral. People loved it. But here's the thing about a brand publicly admitting it's old. It doesn't make people want to shop there. It makes them feel like they were right to stop. In February 2015, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Over 4,000 stores went down. 2 years later, in 2017, RadioShack filed for bankruptcy a second time. The store count was down to 70. General Wireless acquired what was left and tried to keep the name alive through a small franchise operation that later collapsed as well. And if you thought it couldn't get any worse, well, you're wrong.
More personal information may be for sale thanks to RadioShack's bankruptcy case?
Yeah, so in addition to the stores, the inventory, the RadioShack name itself, your name is also on the auction block, and it's worth a pretty penny.
By 2020, RadioShack existed only as intellectual property, a logo, a domain name, and a customer list from a decade ago. That's when retail e-commerce ventures showed up. REV was co-founded by Ty Lopez, a social media personality best known for a YouTube ad about his Lamborghini. Their model was straightforward: buy the brand names of dead retailers at liquidation prices, launch bare bones e-commerce sites under those names, and extract whatever residual consumer trust still attached to the logo. They did it with Pier 1, they did it with Dress Barn, and they did it with RadioShack. What happened next was the part that made people who had childhood memories attached to the brand angry. People who remembered building a crystal radio kit with their grandfather from a box that had the name RadioShack on it. The official RadioShack social media accounts started posting sexually explicit jokes, crypto speculation, and blockchain memes. The tone was deliberately provocative, designed to generate engagement through shock value. The same brand that parents trusted to educate their children about circuits was now tweeting about being down bad and shilling a DeFi token. because that was the endgame. Rev launched Radio, a finance token built on the Avalanche blockchain, branded as RadioShack property. Basically a swap wearing the skin of a dead electronics retailer everyone used to love. The token pumped briefly, as these things do, and then it faded. Rev went increasingly dark. The RadioShack website became a ghost. Broken links, phantom inventory, no customer service. The social accounts went silent. The brand that Charles Tandy spent 30 years building and that 8,000 stores once carried was now a defunct crypto project with a Twitter archive that reads like a college message board. 100 years of accumulated trust, 8,000 storefronts, and a brand that every American over 35 can picture with their eyes closed. And the final entry in the ledger is a crypto token that nobody asked for, built on a blockchain that nobody uses, promoted by people who never walked into a RadioShack in their lives. The lesson isn't that retail is dead or that Amazon kills everything. The lesson is RadioShack knew exactly what made it valuable. Customers told them every single day, and leadership spent 20 years systematically dismantling it anyway. Not because they were forced to, but because they kept chasing something shinier than the thing that actually worked. You don't need 8,000 stores to sell expertise, but you do need to believe that expertise is worth selling. RadioShack stopped believing, and once that was gone, everything else was just paperwork. Now, their final memory is right here on Business HQ, so make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to keep your favorite businesses alive, and comment down below, what was the first thing you bought from RadioShack?